Top 5 horror movie tropes that refuse to die, but we still love them. A haunted house in the wilderness. An old, creepy guy that warns the protagonist and other side characters not to go to that place every time. The stop-off at a dodgy petrol station. A group of friends getting lost in the woods. These are just a few of the horror movie tropes we know and love. From haunted house to final girl, we are going to look into the most persistent horror movie tropes and why we love them. The haunted house. The first known record of the haunted house trope can be traced back to the 18th century in the novel The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. Many of the literary devices Walpole used in this story went on to become hallmarks. Secret identities, hidden passageways, gloomy old houses, supernatural forces, and virginal damsels in distress. Notable horror movies in this genre include The Shining by Stephen King, The Haunting of the Hill by Shirley Jackson, adapted for television by Mike Flanagan, Crimson Peak, The Woman in Black, and so much more. Haunted houses aren't just buildings. In the context of a horror film, they're the character themselves. Like the protagonists, the houses come with their own lore, which is further explored throughout the course of the movie. They hide within their walls tragic pasts and silenced screams of the dead. The haunted house trope is a perversion of the concept of a house, a home. A home is meant to be your sanctuary, the place where you are supposed to feel safe and secure. But in a haunted house, all bets are off.
I didn't get no sleep because of y'all. Y'all not gonna get no sleep because of me.
Like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, which, despite the colorful decor, seems to give off this quiet aura of malevolence that goes on to play a major role in Jack and Torrance's descent into madness. If we talk about The Haunting of the Hill House, Mike Flanagan elevates Shirley Jackson's work by portraying the house as a sinister entity with sentience. We are shown how the house subtly manipulates the Crane family, preying on their respective traumas. It is a study on how reality can be easily distorted into a haunting yet beautiful experience. Haunted houses carry with them not just the memory of what they've seen or heard, but a profound understanding of the scars that have carved themselves into the brick and mortar. In the end, the true terror of these places lies not in the specters or secrets that haunt them, but the way in which they focus and force us to confront ourselves. Just die already! What's more terrifying than a horror movie monster? A horror movie monster that refuses to die. When you're in a horror movie universe, like Scream, Friday the 13th, or Halloween, your biggest fear is the spooky supernatural being that's terrifying the masses.
I still gotta kick my butt!
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
They've been shot at, they've been stabbed, set on fire, dismembered, drowned, chained to the bottom of a water body, and yet they are still here. These guys just don't take no for an answer. It scares the bejesus out of you. The concept of this seemingly indestructible force that won't stop pursuing you despite your best efforts to deter it from doing so. The knowledge that you can only temporarily halt it and that one day it'll come back. If not for you, then for someone else. A reason that we don't tire of the indestructible killer/monster is because it's the metaphor for existential dread. It's a reminder that we exist in a universe with forces beyond our scope of control. The fact that these forces have the power to affect us, whether positively or negatively, and we can do nothing to stop them. We can escape this existential dread by temporarily distracting ourselves with other realities of life, yet it will always be there in the background of our lives, ready to jump us when we least expect it. In a way, it also keeps things interesting. This is the reason that has kept franchises like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and more going. It builds up the tension and the excitement and gives us a reminder that no matter how bad it'll get, we'll survive. I mean, it'll hurt like hell, but we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel eventually. The indestructible killer / just die already trope isn't about the kill count. It's about the gradual diminishing of hope, the realization that some battles aren't meant to be won. It's a sobering reminder of our constant struggle with the forces of evil in this world and our endless fight against them.
We also covered 6 horror movies that are so dumb, they're absolutely perfect. Go laugh and scream with us.
And Creepy Town! Sometimes a haunted house isn't enough. Sometimes you need a little more. A quaint town with a tight-knit community and an outsider, which is the protagonist, or you. If you've ever lived in a small town or are from one, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about ghost towns either. I'm talking about everyone being there. Everyone being normal. Too normal. There's something unsettling about looking at something that appears to be normal, but actually isn't. Something's amiss, but you don't know what it is. Here's the first reason why it works so well. Violation of social trust. We are conditioned to view small towns as safe havens and the big cities as danger zones. The creepy town trope works a lot like the haunted house trope. It takes something that is good and turns it into something perverse. This plays with our minds in the worst way. The people you thought you could trust are the ones out to get you. It's the ultimate betrayal. The biggest examples of this trope are The Children of the Corn, 1984, and The House of Wax, 2005. It's been a while since I revisited Children of the Corn, but I rewatched House of Wax recently, so it's a bit more fresh in my mind. In House of Wax, a group of friends happen across the town of Ambrose on their way to a football game. It quickly becomes apparent that there is something amiss about the seemingly abandoned tourist town. Spoiler alert, it's been turned into the world's biggest playground / trap by a deranged pair of brothers whose part-time hobby is turning people into human-shaped candles. The horror lies in the fact that there is nowhere the friends can run to for help, for there is no one to offer it. Which brings us to our second point, isolation and lack of escape. These towns are almost always remote or near impossible to escape. A good example of this is in cinema in Storm of the Century, the 1999 miniseries based on Stephen King's work of the same name. Focuses on a remote island which is being cut off by a brutal storm. On top of it, they are trapped there with Andre Lingolet, a sinister entity that terrorizes the townspeople to an early grave. So when you combine both together, with nowhere to run, it's a lot. The creepy town trope taps into our profound fears regarding community and trust. It forces us to confront the idea that sometimes a villain isn't some dark, brooding figure wielding a deadly weapon with an agenda, but the people you live with. And the twist. Plot twists are a refreshing jolt to the narrative, reminding us not to get too comfy. Based on how they're tackled in horror films, they can be exceptionally bad or exceptionally good. Let's take 2 examples.
Support the channel by liking and subscribing. It helps more than you think.
M. Night Shyamalan's Signs, 2002, starts off well. The movie painstakingly builds up an impending alien invasion through crop circles, scary sightings, and gradually rising sense of dread. When the aliens eventually invade, they're these fear-inducing extraterrestrial beings who are coming to end your entire career, only for them to have one supremely comical witness: water.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
This makes absolute zero sense, considering 71% of the Earth is water, and our atmosphere holds a lot of water in the form of vapor. Based on that logic alone, the aliens would have struggled just to walk around. But nope! Because of such a twist, science quickly loses the momentum it worked so hard to build, and viewers are left scratching their heads to an unsatisfying conclusion. On the other hand, the good example would include The Killer Was There the Whole Time, which was pulled off in Saw 2004. The movie opens with two men in a bathroom, Adam and Dr. Lawrence Gordon, with a dead body in there. The entire time they are tormented by Jigsaw, who gives them instructions to participate in a deadly game with minimal chances of survival. You too fall for this, completely disregarding the corpse until it rises in the final moments of the film, after Adam has sawed off his foot to seal his fate. Plot twists can make or break a film. They should be logical enough to make sense, but not outlandish enough to shock you. A good plot twist is one that makes you want to go back and rewatch the movie to look for clues and be wowed by the brilliance of the storytelling. The final girl. And now to our last and most favorite trope of them all, the final girl. In horror films, the final girl is the beacon of hope in the face of insurmountable evil. She is the baddie who has spent the entire harrowing runtime of the movie unwillingly tap dancing with death and has come out on top. The term final girl was first coined by Carol J. Glover in 1987. It was used in her article, Her Body Himself, Gender in the Slasher Film, to identify the trope of a lone female survivor in the slasher movies of the 70s and 80s, who confronts the killer in the end. This concept was later expanded upon and popularized in her later work, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film. The reason why the final girl trope still endures to this day is because of the following reasons: identification and empowerment, morally strong and pure, and relatability of trauma and growth. Let's start off with the first one. In a typical group of friends, the final girl is the one that feels the most normal or average. You'll find yourself developing a sense of kinship with her immediately. That kinship will strengthen further when she's confronted by the antagonist of the movie. We cheer her on despite her fears, anxieties, and worries. She soldiers on with resilience and determination. Her victory is hard-won and comes at a personal cost. But by that point, she has earned a solid place in our hearts. Number 2, morally strong and pure. Final girls tend to have a strong moral compass and are often righteous and relatively more woke than their friends. In the earlier horror movies, the sexual purity of a final girl would be the decider of her fate. For example, Annie from Halloween, 1978. She's seen as more sexually liberated and less uptight than Laurie, which makes one think that maybe she'll be the last one standing. We are disabused of that notion when she and her boyfriend Paul are murdered by Michael Myers post-coitus. The sex equals death was strictly enforced in early slashers, but was later subverted by Sidney Prescott, who still manages to survive despite having sexual relations with Billy Loomis and other partners down the line. This thankfully altered the final girl mold a lot, which is why we can now have final girls like Tree Gelbman from the Happy Death Day series. Despite being a mean and promiscuous girl initially, she manages to grow along with the many deaths she is forced to endure in the film. Lastly, we have trauma and growth. All of our final girls endure a series of traumatizing events which alter them forever. The horror doesn't stop when the credits roll. It lingers on in the psyche of our survivors, changing who they are and their lives drastically. Many final girls develop PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder. We see them having recurring nightmares, extreme anxiety, social withdrawal, and dealing with a constant sense of dread. Take, for example, Laurie. In the first film, Laurie is just a survivor. But the 2018 film shows that Laurie has been utterly shattered by her ordeal. 4 decades have passed. She has a family now, but we see that Laurie has not entirely moved on from the traumatic events. Her home is fortified like a fortress. She has a huge arsenal of weapons, and she has trained herself to use firearms. Michael Myers might have been arrested, but he continues to haunt her, even from prison. You can tell that after all these years, Laurie is spoiling for a fight, which she gets when Michael escapes from prison. Isolation and strained relationships become the new norm for our final girls. Family, friends, and lovers, despite their best intentions, are pushed away or distanced because they haven't been there. A good example of this is Sally from the Texas Chainsaw movies. We see that even before the actual ordeal, her relationship with her brother, Franklin, is strained. However, after watching him getting brutally murdered with a chainsaw in front of her own eyes, and then later her friends, any hope of any normal human connection down the line is completely obliterated, especially when you remember how Sally survived the entire ordeal. The 1974 film has some extremely haunting scenes that still affect us despite having seen them multiple times. The ending scene where Sally finally manages to escape the house by jumping out the window while being chased by a chainsaw-wielding Leatherface, her screams of terror turning into laughter is sobering. She might have physically escaped, but mentally she will always be in that house. The trope has evolved from morally good and pure women who survive by luck or male rescue to complex, proactive women who fight back using their own resources and sheer grit. This trope reflects the societal shifts on female agency, allowing girls to become symbols of resilience in the face of insurmountable odds. And we're done! These 5 enduring tropes: the haunted house, the indestructible monster, the creepy town, the twist, and the final girl form the backbone of horror, in my opinion. Of course, there are other tropes without which horror movies wouldn't be enjoyable, but these 5 take the cake every time. What are your favorite horror tropes that you think deserve to be in this list? Comment down below and let us know. Until next time,